Good evening. There's 1 hour and 10 minutes left of the day, being February 1st, 2023. This morning, the woman with bushy gray hair who drives HKR 1477 stopped by Arvid's for a visit around 9:30 a.m. I know she lives nearby because I see her walking her dog, and not more than 2 summers ago, she used to walk her dog with Arvid and sometimes Jayu down the unique and picturesque Walhalla Ravine that transports you to another world, away from the city, where you can be anonymous and forgotten and blend in, and nobody really knows anybody else. In the ravine, you feel unique, seeing each part of Mother Nature and appreciating the world as it is. And you absorb God's energy and strength and have assurance that all in the world is good. That's why my neighborhood is so very special and a prime, desirable location to live. It's like a an exclusive suburb, but with city services. Patty demands attention and keeps pestering the government to do something about me, living across the street from her. Nobody tells her that it's illegal to do because she isn't honest with what she really wants and masks it by calling something something else. Where she got her largest recruitment for a hate agenda was the Rem's a drug dealer story. Then she got support from people with access to R&M who would know when I use drugs. If the neighbors have a voice of authority talking in their heads, it's the same group that's targeting me for being a faggot addict. And if Patty has spread that news around the neighborhood and her quote little helpers, the pussy posse, people could be acting in blind trust of a voice of authority and doing things that directly harm me and gets them to believe Patty's government story all the more. Every time I return from a literal walk around the block, transported to another place and time, I see my home, the White House on the hill, and am reminded that I am a voiceless slave, targeted by neighbors and stalked around the clock, and am nothing more than a purchased slave, put on display for neighbors to misunderstand, not believe, a curse put on, with no rights, no privacy, and no respect, as personal boundaries are continually crossed to anger me and, in Arvid's hope, drive me insane with psychological torture he may be actually committing. Although I feel the whisperers or 437 Como could be the source of R&M because of Eda's work connection, veterans of the Armed Forces of the United States of Generica, where corporate blends is like the chicken pox in 2023. As COVID guidelines ruin and spoil the American dream, intentionally bankrupting small businesses because that's what the elite want. After a number of tries of getting me in trouble for being high, not working, to publicly shame and punish me, the emphasis switched to mental illness being the trouble in my life. And Patty was assured that the plan, told by an impostor and supported by Arved to get Patty's way, would work, or at least wear me down. If nothing else, the constant disruption and interruption in my life would surely make me give up, and I would move on my own, or so they thought. Liars believed of everything they say, and this is why tracing the source of stories all the way back is so very important to get the truth out and liars exposed. Tell of every detail in my life that gives me joy as either a sign of the devil or proof of using drugs or a symptom of a mental illness. Picking up leaves in the yard, playing piano, pleading out loud for neighbors to cooperate and tell the truth are all believed to be a voice, or all believed to be as a voice of authority in their head or a few heads and retold to neighbors and friends. High school drama and gossip as truth, coupled with a strong curse of disbelief of whatever I say. It prevents peaceful resolution from occurring, and the projectionist police blocking neighbors and delivering Patty's pizza she's been watering at the mouth, instructing them to ignore me and that it's all a mental illness, and back it up with, quote, professional, which they created, and government, which are the words of an imposter, the summer of 2019, or from Bill in late summer of 2017, when he planned with the law. The only problem the police and neighbors have is I had no history of any mental illness until I took my mom's bad advice and complained about being followed around town and that I could hear sirens in the distance. A V2K specialty sound effect to scare victims in their head. When I went into my doctor early one morning without an appointment, Dr. Persinger and the nurses discussed the situation in the hall, and then two devils with pentagrams walked into the room, and my first experience of hell out of 25 visits began. Once I had one visit, I was doomed and told in my head of many more coming and a future of permanent removal from the free world would be my fate. Neighbors and then friends, with full support of the police and Netcare at Patty's insistence of government legitimacy, caused all the others and completely ignored me. And completely ignoring me, Arvid's army and the Pussy Posse marched to her drum, and she inches closer to her selfish dream and vision for the neighborhood. And everyone in my life, friends and strangers alike, discriminate against me every day, whether it's in person or online, and believe a gross narrative that is a projection for my future because people with the technology want their way. Another one of my phones reappeared on my kitchen counter this morning. At this point, I consider all the quote gifts or miracles a setup where the device was used to make sabotaging phone calls and then planted to be on my property. So it looks like it was really me. I also was thinking about um, the planted phone I think is Arvid's in my locked vehicle I found at this point weeks ago. It was in the driver's doorwell when I discovered it, getting out of my car in Delaware, Ohio, on Winter Street in front of DJ Young's law office, where Angel Fox represented me, but wasn't, but doesn't believe me and views me as some washed up druggie because my captors put me in a mild hypnosis during the bogus stalking hearing, November 2020, in front of the judge. She had a conversation with Arved privately at the discovery phase of the hearing and said a single sentence afterward with no details. He's crazy. I've prodded Angel on more than a few occasions to please explain how the statement came to be, but she doesn't respond. This is the same response I get from fraternity brothers when asked what Patty and Arvid told them. It's frustrating beyond belief to have information kept secret when these individuals are known for decades or even paid a whopping $4,300 and getting a termination retainer form. Anyway, let's see Arvid drive my manual transmission vehicle if he makes up some story believed by all. His arrogance creates his downfall. One thing that's been forgotten nearing a quarter of the 21st century is how interconnected the reality of freedom is with privacy. We don't make a connection because we view the two things as separate and mutually exclusive, but they're not. Let's use the privacy of your own home, for example. If you know your house is tapped and you know other people are listening, you likely self censor your interaction with whomever is involved in conversation. Or let's consider the very hot topic of abortion. The Supreme Court made a horrible decision in telling states that they reserve the right, guaranteed for all by citizenship, privacy of your own body. A state should never have the right to decide what you can or can't do legally to your own body. The Supreme Court decision is an unconstitutional one because it restricts, in some states, something everyone, regardless of which borders you live between, has a right to. A body or a home is an American right and never determined by statehood. The court's decision has not preserved the people's rights, which is its role. Instead, it's transferred a right of the people and given it to government instead. This is a slippery slope and lax adherence to the Constitution or the creation of exceptions like the Patriot Act end up diluting a essential essential principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's also why calling something something else is so very dangerous. Patty Ryan, for instance, knew that I am mad at her. And instead of accepting her part in creating my behavior, she called it something else. And everyone bought the bag of cheap glass beads that sold the island that traded a large island, presently known as Manhattan, and before part of New Amsterdam, a trading center and land colonized by the Dutch. When you call something poisonous and toxic as medicine or time in isolation from society, quote, treatment with zero therapeutical benefits, there is certainly something wrong with an entire field of medicine. I can't make people like me in the neighborhood. However, I can demand respect and adherence to boundaries that I would like observed. If we let others walk all over something not theirs and not respect it, and then do nothing about it, allowing it to occur, we self impose a policy of boundarylessness where nothing is considered personal and off limits to others who might want it for themselves. The one thing more than any other that prevents respect from becoming a reality in the neighborhood is a lack of information, and as a result, mutual understanding and comprehension is lacking. It's easy to create a narrative of anything if you eliminate the other side of the story. That's what the goal of the police has been, to make my version the truth, not believed and discredited by a bias and stereotyping of users of drugs and of a mental illness that meant any telling of real threats would be believed by others to be not real, and me displaying symptoms of something professionals said I suffer from. Once Patty and Arvid introduced the technology to the police, they recognized an immediate benefit and application to their role as enforcers of laws through ownership of the technology. The neighbors were shoved aside and the police directed things. How can I know? The anonymous calls to Net Scare by MCR unit, who jumped on the anti drug bandwagon and participating in the quote research experiment I never signed a damn thing for. They saw as benefiting society, but really eliminated the ability for a victim to ever experience recovery, because harassment using this technology means an existence living in a created delusion for only the victim to see and experience, as if they were using while sober, being teased by a reality nobody else could see or experience or agree was real. It's true. I've been through hell, but I've exited through a trap door of faith and boldly announce and shout the definition of discriminating against something that is not a choice or a decision on the part of the individual. It's like blaming a cancer patient for becoming sick and teasing them about their inability to stay healthy.